So before we start our course, I would just like to, divert your attention to something that you must have got when you registered for the course, and that is CEH or Aspen iLabs. Did you guys get this iLabs? Did you get a coupon or something like that in your email? Okay, if you have, you could just write down yes. If you haven't, don't worry. I'll just give you an overview of what we will be working with. And from now on, our classes will be regular. Okay, because I was actually dealing with other batches, so it took me some time to end those batches. But now, starting today, and I guess today's 21st, so like from now on, we are going to have regular classes every weekend. Okay. Okay, so you guys did not get any coupon. So all you need to do is email the support team because you guys opted for CEH. Okay, this is for those who opted for CEH. Okay, so what you need to do is email the support team. Okay, ask them about the iLabs access. Okay, and they'll give it to you within a day or two. Okay, and then all you need to do is go to your browser. You the coupon that you get. Okay, you would have to apply it here because I've already redeemed the coupon. That is why I won't have the capability to use it again. But this is what your browser-based lab section would look like. Okay, so you enter your name here. Okay, so since most of you have opted for CHV11, okay, and if you haven't, for those of you who haven't, don't worry. Uh, like for most of the time we'll be working with our own labs, okay, the labs that we'll create in the classes. Okay, so this is because the stuff discussed in this lab portion is almost trivial, okay, and they have a guided walkthrough for you as well, so we'll discuss them when the need arises, because otherwise you guys would have a whole week to revise the stuff that we have gone through. So that is why some of these labs would be assigned to you as homework. Okay, so let's just look at the first lab and how it works. So if I go to the launch section, okay, wait, and just to let you know, if you are planning to take CEHV11 practical, okay, and that is actually the exam that I would advise all of you to go for. Okay, uh, if you are planning to take CEH, okay, if you prepare these labs well enough, if you go through these labs again and again, let's say twice or thrice, then there is nothing that is going to stop you from passing the exam. Okay. So for the theoretical portion of CEHV11, which is the CEHV11 multiple choice questions based exam, it I wouldn't say it's tricky, but there is a lot of stuff that you need to memorize. Okay, so that's how it is. Okay. So this is just a simple lab that I would just wanted to show you. So you've got all the instructions provided here to you, like what is the scenario? Okay, what are you trying to achieve? What is the objective? Okay, tells you a little bit about the concepts that you would be dealing with. Okay, and don't worry, just give me a. Okay, so these are the tasks that you would have to perform. And alongside these tasks, you would also be granted access to the resources. So what are these resources? These resources are the different operating systems that you will be dealing with. Okay. Although when we start our classes from today, I would advise you to build your own lab. Okay. So after I discuss this, I'll ask each and every one of you, like, what is your system configuration? And then we'll accordingly decide which penetration testing distribution of Linux we would be using. Okay. So let's say if you want to use a Windows machine, you can. If you want to deal with Parrot security, which is the latest pen testing distribution being used by EC Council, you can also work with this. So there is also a section for Android security or Android pen testing where you can use this Android machine. Okay. So for those of you who have opted for CHV11, you will definitely be getting access to these labs. Okay. So when the class ends today, you just email the support team today, okay? Because see, how would you recognize which email is for the support team? Just check which which email sender was used to send you emails from networking. So that would be the support team. Okay, just email them and get the lab access. All right. So any doubts here? So I was just giving you a basic overview like how this works. Any doubts here? Seems simple, right? So you would only be able to work with this when you get access, right? Okay. Now, other than this, can you guys please write down in the chat box like what system configuration do you have? So I just want to know about the RAM and the processor. That's it. Like RAM 8 GB, 4 GB, 16 GB, and processor i5, i7. That's all I want to know. Yes, could everyone write that down in the chat box? Yeah, just the RAM and the processor. Yes, Ajit, Kushal, Praveen, Ravi, Zenith. Okay, cool. Others, could you also write that down? Yeah, no need to write down the operating system because we would have to install a different distribution of Linux for that. Okay. So yeah, so I believe the least config here would be of 4 GB, nothing less than that. Okay. Now you've got two options here. Okay. Usually when we start dealing with our labs, we'll first install an operating system, and that would be used for hacking. Okay. Hacking or pen testing, whatever you want to call it. Hacking is more of a slang based term, while pen testing is the real technical term that we use. Okay. So for that, you initially have three options. Okay. First one is Kali. The second one is Parrot. Then there are other distributions of Linux as well, but they tend to be really heavyweight. Okay. So they eat a lot of your resources, the device resources. And then the third one, which is a little unheard of, is the Commando VM. Okay, so both of these are Linux based, while this one is Windows based. So this is the only Windows based penetration testing distribution created by a company called FireEye. Okay, these two are Linux based. Okay, now you guys have either 4 gigs of RAM or 8 gigs of RAM. Okay, the best option that I would advise you to choose is Parrot. If you have Kali and if it's working perfectly fine, then no worries at all. But what would happen is that in our further classes or in our future classes, when we will be dealing with CAN simulators, the when we'll try to learn car pen testing, electric vehicle pen testing, smart vehicle pen testing, then Kali Linux would be really heavy on your system resources. Okay, so if you're working with Kali and you already have some data on it, then keep it, not a problem. Okay, there are some workarounds which you can follow in order to get things done on Kali as well. But the best distribution would be Parrot. Okay, would be Parrot. All right, guys. So Parrot is one of the most lightweight distributions used for each and every purpose, from pen testing to anonymity. I mean, staying anonymous, because Parrot OS has a lot of tools related to how you can access the dark web very safely. Okay, and then if you are even trying to learn reverse engineering and malware analysis, then Parrot is also really good for that. Okay, so what you need to do is go to parrotsec.org. Okay, you go to the download section. Okay, and what you need is the security edition. Okay, because the home edition is usually used for uh, maintaining anonymity. Okay, it's not that you can't install tools on the Parrot home edition. You can, but you would have to install them manually one by one. Okay, however, if you opt for the security edition, you'll get all these tools pre-installed. Okay, so if you go to get security edition, then depending on what kind of configuration you have, okay, so let's say let's say your system is not compatible with a lot of virtual machines running at one single time. Okay, because we won't just be working with Parrot or Kali, we will be installing other operating systems as well. Okay, the ones that we can pen test into, the ones that we can analyze for security issues. So that is why the best option here would be to go with Mate. Okay, so it's more of an old school kind of a distribution where you don't have the capabilities to customize the operating system. And that's cool. We don't really have to customize our operating system to make it look really cool. We just need to learn stuff. So for that, you can use Mate Desktop. Okay. So you can use either the download section or you can use the torrent to get it. So if you use the first two options, you'll get an ISO file. Okay. However, if you opt for the third option, then you'll get an OVA file. Okay. So I believe most of you would be using VirtualBox. Okay. So in that case, if you just use the virtual appliance, it will be more of a plug and play kind of a thing. Okay, where you just have to get that OVA file, double click on it, and the operating system will boot up. Otherwise, if you opt for ISO, then there are a lot of options that you need to configure, right? How much disk space do you want to allocate? Uh, what about the grub bootloader? So a lot of stuff related to that. Okay. So initially for our initial classes, okay, just to get started, I would advise you to get this virtual appliance. Okay, so I'll copy the link here as well and I'll paste it for you guys. Okay. So just go through this after the class or even now. You can do it whenever you want. Just keep it for the downloading. And after that, I'll show you how to install it. Okay. The other option that you have is Kali Linux. This is for those who believe that their device can easily handle Kali. Okay. If I go to kali.org, okay, so you would have to install the virtual machine here. Okay, and depending on what kind of system do you have, if it's a 32-bit or if it's a 64-bit processor, you can download either of them. Okay, but even if you choose to work with 32-bit, it will work on both. Okay, so if you choose 32-bit, it will have a lesser footprint. Okay, it will occupy lesser resources and it will be able to work on both. Okay, so you can use Kali or Parrot depending on your choice. Okay, and the third one is Commando VM, which is basically a small PowerShell script that gets installed on top of your Windows operating system. Okay, but there's a catch here that it won't get installed on your host operating system. What you would have to do is you would have to install a Windows 7 virtual machine, and on top of that, you will be able to run a small PowerShell script which will convert your Windows 7 virtual machine into a pen testing operating system. Got it? So anyone has any doubt, so what I'll do is I will do this. I will wait more. I'll choose this option, allow participants to unmute themselves. So if anyone has any question, please go ahead. So I have pasted these links in the chat box. I'll also paste these links in the student portal. Okay, so that if you forgot to copy them, then you will have the ability to look at these links after the class as well. So Let me ask each and everyone, Ajit, Kushal, Praveen, Ravi, Shashidhar, Zenith, do you guys have any doubts at all till this point? Nope. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I encourage all of you to, be very active. So at the time you get any doubt or if you are facing any problem, just unmute yourselves and let me know. Okay. Then after this, what are we going to do? We are initially going to start our labs on some cybersecurity platforms that are pre-built. Okay, we are not initially going to go into very difficult stuff. We are not going to build our own labs initially. Just give me a second. Yeah, so what I was telling you that we won't right away start working with customized labs. We will first work with pre-built labs that will actually help us build confidence. Okay, because the initial stuff is obviously difficult. Okay, no matter what background you come from, even if you have 10s or 15 years of experience, if I straight away start teaching you the complex stuff, then obviously it's going to get very difficult for you to understand. So that is why we will start our initial classes with a platform called TryHackMe. So have you guys heard of this platform called TryHackMe? Yes or no? Anyone has heard of TryHackMe? Cool, awesome. So anyone has played or anyone has practiced with labs on TryHackMe before? Nope. Okay, no worries. So if anyone has, like Zenith has, he would know how awesome these labs are. Okay, and how cool these labs are. So that is why what we are going to do here is initially we are going to create an account here on TryHackMe. It's simple. Okay, you go to tryhackme.com. Uh, it asks you for you know a subscription. Okay, and you will opt for the free model rather than going for a paid subscription because you have already paid for the iLabs. So that is why I wouldn't suggest you to go with the paid subscription model right away. Although it's cheap, it's very, very cheap. It's only $7 a month. But just go with the free model. Okay. And once you have created your account here on TryHackMe, what would you need to do? You would have to go to access. Okay, because all the labs that we are going to work with will be accessed through VPN. Okay, they will be accessed through VPN. Okay, and I'll tell you why we use VPN. So first of all, what I need to do here is I'll go to VMware Fusion. This is the hypervisor that I'm using. Now, according to your choice, you can go with any hypervisor that you want. You can go with VirtualBox. You can go with VMware Fusion. You can go with VMware Workstation. Okay, so it's completely up to you. You can choose any hypervisor that you want. Okay, and I believe everyone here knows what an hypervisor is. So yes, guys, can you tell me a little bit about what an hypervisor is? What is a hypervisor? Okay, so hypervisor is basically a software used for virtualization. Okay, so for those of you who are already working at top MNCs, top organizations, you would already know that, or you would have worked with hypervisors in one form or the other, right? So the hypervisors that are there in your organization are known as T1 hypervisors. Okay, I would just write T1 hyper. Okay, so how are they working? So basically, all those big servers that you have in your organization, Dell, HP, anything. Okay, on top of these server. So this is basically the hardware. On top of these servers, you have these T1 hypervisors installed. Okay. And on top of these, you can install various virtual machines. Okay. A simple example of a type 1 hypervisor would be the ESXi hypervisor. Okay. It's a hypervisor created by VMware. Okay. It's created or it's built for enterprise virtualization. Okay. So that's the T1 hypervisor. Now, what about the hypervisors that we are using, like the one that I have on my computer? So that's known as a T2 hypervisor. Okay. How does it work? You have your device. It could be Dell, HP, Asus, anything, or even MacBook. Okay. So you have that also counts as hardware. Okay. And on top of that, you have the operating system that you are working with. It could be Windows, it could be Linux, or it could be Mac OS. Okay. On top of that, you would install something that is known as a T2 hypervisor or desktop virtualization hypervisor, which could either be VMware Workstation Pro, VMware Fusion, or VirtualBox, which is built by Oracle. And on top of that, you can have as many virtual machines as you want. But obviously, all comes down to the system resources that you have. Okay. So this right here, the one VMware Fusion that you see on my screen is a T2 hypervisor, which sits on top of my operating system. Okay. All right, guys. Any doubt here? Anyone? Ajit, Kushal, Praveen, Ravi, Shashidhar, Zenith. Any doubt at all? Okay, so this is the basic stuff that you are already familiar with. Okay, similarly, you can use any hypervisor that you want. You would have to choose from VMware Fusion, VMware Workstation, or VMware Workstation Pro. Now you can easily get a license key from the internet, so you can make your VMware Workstation to VMware Workstation Pro. Okay, or you can work with Oracle VirtualBox. And if you are using a MacBook, then there is another option. It's called Parallels. So Parallels is one of the other hyper virtualization. It's a hypervisor. It's a T2 hypervisor that you can use. Okay. So that is what you can use. Now, in my case, I'm using VMware Fusion. I have created my machine. It's already there. It's a Kali Linux machine. Okay. But from tomorrow's class, what I'll do is I'll also keep Parrot. Okay. And basically, there are not a lot of differences between both of them. It's just that Parrot is more lightweight. Okay, so for tomorrow's class, I will also keep Parrot and I'll show you the basic differences between the both. Okay, now, because for most of the time when we'll be performing our labs, we will either be using Kali or Parrot. So what you need to do is you need to go to your browser. You need to go to Try Hack Me. You go to login. Okay, so I already have an account here. When you'll be creating your account in the same way, you just have to use the join now section. You go to login. Okay, and then you go to a section called access. After going to access, what you need to do is you need to go to this section called machines. Okay, let me tell you about the difference between machines and networks. So TryHackMe has really evolved over the time. Okay, so now what do they have? They have single machines. They have standalone machines that you can hack into, and they also have complete networks. Okay, like they would have a complete Active Directory which you can hack into. Well, that's actually reserved for the later classes, but you have the capability to hack into Active Directory as well. Or you can hack into a network which has around 5 machines. And then after hacking into one machine, you can jump into the other machines and gain sensitive information from them. Okay. So what you need to do right now is you need to choose machines, because for the initial classes we will be working with the standalone machines that we'll try to hack into. Okay, after we have understood all the concepts related to them, then we might jump onto networks. We might, or we'll build our own labs. Okay, then you need to select a server here. Okay, now I believe most of you guys are in India right now. Am I right? Am I wrong? If anyone is not living in India right now, then you would have to choose the server which is nearest to you. Okay, because I'm in India right now, so I can either opt for IN regular. Okay, now let me tell you something about IN regular, because I have also been playing try hack me for around 1.5 or 2 years now. So what I have observed is that the IN regular one server is situated somewhere in the southern part of the India. Okay, southern part of India. So that is why sometimes when I'm trying to connect to IN regular one server, the connection is weak. Okay, that is why I have chosen EU regular one, because I live in the northernmost part of India. I live in Jammu and Kashmir. That is why I've chosen EU regular one, because the connectivity is as good as IN regular one. Okay, so you can choose EU regular one. Okay, and then when whatever server you have chosen, it's up to you. Just click it here. Okay, and then wait for 2 to 3 seconds. Wait for 2 to 3 seconds and download this configuration file. Okay, download the configuration file. Once you download this configuration file on your Linux based operating system, where will it be? It will be in a folder called downloads. Okay, as you can see here, this is my downloads folder, and somewhere here there will be a file called, wait, acap95.ovpn. Okay, so why do we get such a name? I'll show you. Okay, so let's say Zenith has created an account here, so it would somewhat be like Zenith H. So let's say Zenith H is his username. Okay, so based on your username you'll get an ovpn file. So ovpn file is basically the config file through which you can access the networks of TryHackMe, or the machines based on the TryHackMe server. Okay, so whenever you create your account here, guys, so your file will look like this. Okay, now why do we have a VPN file here rather than having this network made public? Reason is this. Okay, because what used to happen was, whenever these machines were uploaded for people to practice their hacking skills or pen testing skills or reverse engineering skills, what used to happen was there was one machine, and let's say there were 20 users. Okay, now I know most of us are uh, benign. We do not really do malicious stuff. We are there to practice. Okay, but some people, let me just tell you, some people were trying to plant backdoors or trying to plant malware on the machine, which would then infect the other users' machines as well. Okay, so some people were doing this initially. So what they did was, they gave you a private connection. They gave you a private connection to this machine. Okay, so what would happen here is, this is the machine that you're trying to hack into. Let's say, let's call it V for victim machine. And this is Zenith, this is Kushal, this is Praveen, and this is me, Adhirath. Okay. Now, whenever we try to hack into this machine, we will be able to access the same machine, but there will be a private connection. Okay. There will be a private connection, which means that none of us can interfere with each other's activities. Got it? Did you get it, everyone? Why? On most of the cybersecurity platforms, you would be provided with a VPN configuration. Got it, everyone? Or is there any doubt here? Ajit, Hemant, Kushal, Praveen, Ravi, Shashidhar, Zenith, everyone. Got it? Okay, awesome. Thanks. So what you'll do now is, you have this OVPN file here. You'll go to your terminal. We'll be talking about the terminals like really soon after I talk about all this stuff. So you write, well, I won't show you sudo, before, I'll first use the command. Okay, so we got an OVPN file. OVPN. Now, what is that? Okay, so there are different tunneling softwares, okay, through which you can gain access into a network through the use of VPN. Now, the VPN provider that we are using here is Openvpn, which is free to use. Openvpn is a tool that is free to use. Okay. And all you need to do here is to provide the config file. What kind of service are you trying to connect to? That is that all that information is contained in the config file. Okay. And how do you connect to the try hack me servers? You have to write open VPN. Now my file is present in the downloads directory, and I'll write acap95.ovpn. Some scripts will run, some logs will be observed here, and eventually what do we get? Exiting due to fatal error. See, exiting due to fatal error. It means that the command that we try to run, it did not work at all. Now, backtrack the problem here. Backtrack the problem. What does it say? Cannot IOCDL turn set if turn operation not permitted. Okay, let me tell you what is trying to happen here. Okay, so what happens is that on our devices, we have different interfaces. So I'm talking about networking right now. So, and I believe most of you are familiar with this stuff. Okay, so you have different types of interfaces on your device. Okay, so you would have a Bluetooth interface which will enable the Bluetooth connection. You would have an EN interface which will be used for Wi-Fi. You would have an ETH interface which will be used for plugging the Ethernet cable through which you can connect to the internet. Okay, now what is this tool or what is this command trying to do here? This command is trying to create a new interface called the tunnel interface. Okay, now what is this tunnel interface going to be used for? This is going to be used for maintaining a VPN session. Maintain or create a VPN session with the TryHackMe server. Okay, now what happened here was that this command tried to create a tunnel interface, but the operation was not permitted. Okay, uh, now let me just tell you about the operating system that we are on. So we are on Linux. Okay, and Linux is supposed to be an inherently secure operating system. Okay, I'm not saying that a Linux operating system will never get infected with malware or backdoors or anything that is malicious in nature. It will, but inherently it is more secure than Windows. Okay, so basically if you're trying to do something, if you're trying to make changes to the device, to the operating system, you would have to require permissions from someone. Okay, basically the supreme user on a Linux operating system, and that is the root user. Okay, that is the root user. So what happens is that unless and until you ask for the permissions to create a new interface from the root user, you won't be able to do anything at all. Okay, so what do you need to do here? It's simple, very, very simple. So you just need to write sudo here, you provide the password, and now you'll see, and even if you want to wait for 2 to 3 seconds, you'll observe that this is where we stop. This is where we stop. Okay, and what does it mean? It means that the sequence has been completed. It means that we have successfully connected to the TryHackMe server. Okay, now never ever exit this terminal. Okay, just minimize this, because if you exit it, then the connection between you and TryHackMe or any other cybersecurity platform that you are working with and has an OpenVPN configuration file, it will end abruptly. So what you need to do here is you just click on minimize and you're good to go. Okay, so this is something that you all of you need to do after today's class. Okay, but don't worry, I haven't even started talking about Linux. I haven't even started talking about what we are supposed to do in these classes. Okay, so before we start with hacking into stuff, enjoying what we are doing, I first want to talk about something that is going to help us in our classes. Okay, and that is the OSI model. Now, you guys must be thinking, like, at least those of you who have come from NOCs, or those of you who are into network security, and you would be thinking, why the heck is this guy teaching OSI model in the first class for a batch that is going to be purely cybersecurity? Let me tell you, each and every one, OSI model is very, very essential for us. Okay. Now, we don't really have to learn each and everything again, but we need to know about the main addresses that are there. Okay. We need to know about the main addresses that are there. So can anyone just, quickly tell me, why do we use OSI model? Why is it there? Because let's be honest, it's not even the standardized model for communication these days. We use TCP IP. We use TCP IP model. We don't even use this. Yes, guys. You could either write this down in the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself, please go ahead. It's up to you. Yes, anyone? Ajit, Kushal.
To know the how the data flows from different layers. Like if you are in physical layer, if you are in network layer, or if you are in application layer, how the data flows, how the data transport and accepted.
Right, right. Yeah, go ahead.
Also, and for maintain the connectivity throughout the globe, because throughout the globe there are certain parameters which are different from each other, like the sockets are different in UK as different are in US. So that problem happens in World War II. So resolve that in connectivity, they created this OSI model.
Right, right. Awesome, awesome. And does it tell you anything about the types of addresses that we use?
Pardon me, type of?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the types of addresses that we work with.
Yes, yes, yes.
So can anyone name, any address, any particular address that we work with in reality, and they have also been mentioned here in the OSI model. So I'm talking about how a device is identified logically, how a device is identified physically, those type of addresses.
Logically
MAC
IP
address,
address, physically
Yeah, yeah.
MAC address.
Okay. And what about the services a particular device is offering? What kind of address would come into play when we talk about the services a device is providing? Yes, anyone? Yeah, you know the answer. You're just getting confused. That's it. What about, okay, so you know about MAC addresses. That is on layer. That is on layer.
Second.
Second. What about the logical addresses? That is on layer.
Network layer. Third.
Three. And what about the addresses on layer 4, guys?
TCP IP.
Ports.
Ports. Awesome. Ports. Okay. Cool. So the answer that I was looking, to hear from all of you was port addresses. Okay. Let's talk about the whole OSI model once again. Just once again, and we've got the stack. Okay, and it has 7 layers: physical, data link, networking or network layer. We got T for transport, S for session, P for presentation, and A for application. So most of the users that work, or so let's just talk about general users that are trying to use the computer networks to connect to maybe to a service. So they are at all times sitting on the application there. Okay. And if you want to be a network engineer, then the layers that you would be working with most of the time would be these 3 layers, which are known as the hardware layers. Okay. If you are a protocol developer, or if you are an application developer, then the layers of the OSI model that you work with are these 3: A, P, and S: application, presentation, and session. Now this one is known as the heart of the OSI model. Okay, and just wanted to know if everyone knows, knows about the basic details related to the OSI model. Everyone, like what is the purpose of physical layer, what is the purpose of data links layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation, and application. I hope everyone knows that, because if anyone among you doesn't, I'll discuss this for sure. Everyone knows it. Ajit, Kushal, Praveen, Ravi, Shashidhar, and Zenith. Everyone knows it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. So that is why we won't get into the details of OSI model. What I want to shift your focus to are these three layers. Let's take an example. Let's take an example. Okay, let's say you are a hacker. Even though we haven't started hacking yet, but let's say you are a hacker. Okay, and you come across an IP, or you get somebody's IP. Is that all? What do you think? Is that all? Now, do you think hacking into this IP is easy or difficult? What do you think? Let's say you get my public IP. You get my public IP. What do you think? Am I hackable? Can I be hacked now?
Yes, sir.
How? Could you be more specific? Could you give me some reasoning related to this?
We will find the open ports through Nmap,
Okay, awesome,
and
awesome.
we will try to flood or to create a backdoor.
Okay, okay, awesome. Anyone else who has a similar opinion or even a different opinion? Or let me put my question like this. Is an IP address enough for us to hack a machine? Is an IP address enough? Or do we need more details?
With IP, we need more details also, sir.
We definitely need more details, right? Anyone else who has any other opinion?
So if we get IP address, then we get other details also through that
Yeah.
IP.
Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. So the three layers that we should focus on are transport, network, and data link. Why? Because these are the three layers which have different types of addresses associated with them. Okay, and all of these addresses map to each other. They are interrelated to each other. Okay, so let's say me and Zenith, we both buy the same device. We both buy the same device. I mean, everything is the same. Configuration is the same. The devices look the same. I mean, the the color that we bought, that's also the same. So how do we distinguish them on a physical level? Through their MAC addresses. Now let's say we are on a network and we want to communicate with other devices. Okay, at that time it gets very tough to remember the other device's MAC address, so we can't really remember somebody's MAC address. Okay, the least that we can do is remember their IP. That's also tough, but obviously we can remember their IP to communicate with them. But then, is that all? Is communication just limited to knowing each other's IP addresses? Or when we communicate with each other, it has to solve a specific purpose. Let's say we are talking to each other. I might just say anything at all. Hey, how are you? I am from this state. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. But would that make sense for this particular session that we are having? What is the purpose for all of us to be here? To do what? To take a class on cybersecurity, okay, or on CEH. So basically, every communication that happens between parties, might be two or might be more, it has to solve a specific purpose, okay? Because we are not just here to waste each other's time or even our time, okay? We are here to solve a specific purpose, okay? Similarly, in the domain of computer networking, when two parties or more are communicating with each other, they have to solve a specific purpose. And that is via the service that we connect to. Okay. And that is defined by the transport layer. Okay. Okay. Let's say Adhirath is talking to Zenith. Okay. This is me, this is Zenith. We're trying to talk to each other. And I say hello. And he replies hello back. but that would be all because we don't know each other. But then I find out that this guy is a knock engineer, and I am, not so good in some of the concepts of computer networking. So that is why I will ask him, hey Zenith, could you teach me that? So that is a specific service being provided by Zenith. Similarly, when IPs are communicating with each other, okay, there is always a purpose, and that purpose is defined by the services that are defined on port, that are defined on layer 4. Okay, and services are always bound to some kind of addresses which are known as port addresses. Okay, this tells us what is an IP capable of running. Okay, let's say I come across an IP and I get to know that it is running HTTP, it is running SSH, it is running FTP. Okay, so now whenever we come across an IP, and this is what I was talking about, I obviously need more details. I obviously need more details. Like, how am I supposed to hack into a particular IP that I get? And I will get to know that particular thing by finding out what services that particular IP offers me. Okay. Once I have that information, it is going to become very, very easy for me to find out how I can get inside, what I can hack into. Okay. Now, once I find out that a particular IP is hosting these three services, then I can go into these services one by one and check for something that is known as vulnerability. So let's, okay, so is this much understood? I said that whenever I get to know that an IP is running some services, I will try to take each service and I'll try to find their vulnerabilities. Okay, so this was my point. Now, the next thing that I want to put up, or the next point that I want to put up, is a question. So when I talk about iPhones, iOS, okay, and I'm going to say, are all iOS versions vulnerable to something? That's my question. Are all iOS versions vulnerable to something? Is that a right question that I'm asking, or do I need to be more specific? Yes, can everyone help me out here? Is that a right question to ask someone, or do I need to modify my question? Yes, guys, can you help me out here? Okay, so this was my first question, and my second question is iPhone can be hacked. Is that a right statement to say? And what do I need to modify in both these statements? Okay, no worries. I'll start modifying these two statements. So first question is, are all iOS versions vulnerable? Okay, cool. I mentioned about the versions, but did I say vulnerable to what? Vulnerable to ransomware, vulnerable to malware, vulnerable to backdoors, vulnerable to reverse shells, vulnerable to what? Vulnerable to XSS, vulnerable to what? I didn't talk about vulnerable to what kind of attacks. Okay, so that is the first thing that I need to mention in the first statement, and that is how I will modify the first statement. Then the next statement that I have written here is iPhone can be hacked. That's a very vague statement, because if I talk about iPhone has different iOS versions ranging from 5 to 14.7. I guess that's the one that we are working with these days. Okay. So there are so many versions. First of all, I need to mention the versions here. Okay. And hacked. Hacked again is a very vague term. Okay. Hacked means vulnerable. But again, I haven't mentioned anything. So vulnerable to what? Okay. Do you get my point, guys? So whenever you get statements like these, let's say from a cybersecurity professional or from a person who is not so well versed in cybersecurity, if you get questions like these, then obviously your answer is going to be no, and you would have to ask them to be more specific. Do you get my point, guys? Yes or no? Ajit, Kushal, Praveen,
Yes, sir.
Ravi. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So do you guys get this point? Okay. So saying that a particular device or a particular machine can be hacked, that's very, very vague. And that is why we need to know these things. Okay. We need to know about the ports. We need to know about the services that are running on these ports. And we need to know about the versions of these services. Okay. We need to know about the versions of these services. Let's take up an example of SSH. Okay. Okay. Now SSH can come in variety of versions. Okay. And each version could be vulnerable to something. And when we talk about the latest version of SSH being used, then it might be vulnerable to something or might not be vulnerable to something. So that is how we deal with, that is how we talk about these terms in cybersecurity. And let's say they are vulnerable. Vulnerable doesn't mean that your machine has been hacked. It means that they are vulnerable to some or the other attacks. Okay. And if they are vulnerable, then as a pen tester or as an attacker or as an ethical hacker, we will exploit these vulnerabilities. Got it? Got it, everyone? So you just can't say that this IP can be hacked or this IP is vulnerable. You would first have to find out the open ports, the services that this IP is running. Okay. And after finding out what services that IP is running, you would have to find about the versions on that particular IP. Okay, versions of the services running on that particular IP. And then you would have to check if that particular version is vulnerable to something. Okay. And if it is vulnerable to something, then how can you exploit it? Okay. This is what we are supposed to do. Okay. Got it? So this is what we are supposed to do. Now, let's take a very small example. I'll just showcase a tool. I'm not teaching you that tool right now. I just want to clear all the misconceptions related to cybersecurity. That is why I'm going to launch a tool called MSF Console. Okay. So MSF Console is basically a tool known as Metasploit framework. So it's an automated framework that is going to help us hack into things or pen test into things. Okay. So this is completely automated. We as hackers or pen testers don't have to do much. We just need to add some basic details here. Okay. And this framework will automatically pen test. Okay. So when I talk about MSF6, let's say I want to hack into Android. And when we get the results, we get this information. Okay. So this is a module used for exploitation. Okay, this is a module used for exploitation of what? Of Adobe Reader running on Android. Okay, let's say if you want to steal cookies, or if you want to steal any other files present on a browser, then for that there is a particular module for hacking that will try to steal the files on browser. Which browser? Android browser, the generic Android browser. Okay. If you want to carry out an attack on Google Play Store, then you have an attack called Google Play Store UXSS Xframe RCE. Okay. Like I said, if you look for just an operating system, then you're going to get a lot of results. Okay. And it will get very, very difficult for you to hack into something. So you need to be more specific. Okay. You need to be more specific. Like, let's say if you're trying to hack into Android operating systems, then you would first have to find out which service do you have to, which service you would have to hack into. Got it? Or which service do you want to pen test? And then you would have to check if that particular service is vulnerable to something or not. Okay. So that is how it works. So any questions, guys? Did you now understand this point? So whenever we are working with our labs and we get an IP, what is the first thing that I'm always going to tell you to do is to find out which ports are running on that IP. What is the version of that particular service running on that port on a particular IP, and then we will move forward. Got it, guys? Yes or no? Anyone who has any doubt till this point? Nope. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead if you have any doubts. Or all good? All good? Okay. Cool. Again, if you have any doubt at all, please let me know. Okay. So I believe we'll keep our today's class till this point, because I don't want to, go overboard with all the information. Okay. So that's all for the first class, and we'll meet tomorrow. All right, guys. Okay. So take care.